Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Greetings from Brussels. My name is Selene Peterbauer. I am the Deputy Director of Institutional Development at the European University Association, and I have the pleasure of guiding you today through today's webinar entitled Evaluating European Universities' Alliances with EUA's Institutional Evaluation Program, Supporting Strategic Leadership and Change. Thanks again for joining us today. I look forward to the upcoming hour. Today's webinar is about a new approach currently being conducted under the Institutional Evaluation Program of EUA, IEP in short. This is, in case you are not already familiar with IEP, EUA's Quality Assurance Program. It was founded already in 1994. And I believe my colleagues have already pasted a link to IEP into the chat. In these past decades, since 1994, EUA-IEP has conducted more than 450 evaluations in 51 countries. So it has therefore distinguished experience in conducting institutional evaluations with a specific focus on providing support for strategic leadership and change management, specifically through a context-driven approach to institutional evaluation. It's also worth noting that it is independent of national agencies or government evaluation or accreditation programs. So it really acts at a European level and independently. Now, so far, this is about the classic EUA-IEP, which you might already be familiar with. But today we are talking about a new strand of activities, which is evaluation specifically for European universities' alliances. In this webinar, we hope to give you a good overview of the approach to alliance evaluations, the methodology that is being used for these evaluations, and of course, the added value of why we are even offering IEP for alliances. And we are also about to hear about the experience of the very first alliance that is using this approach and that is currently under evaluation. We have 3 speakers joining us for this webinar today. And I would like to welcome to the floor my colleague, the first speaker today, Cecilia Biaggi, who is a Policy and Project Officer at the IEP Secretariat here in Brussels. She will tell us about the EUA-IEP approach to, on the one hand, institutional evaluations, the classic IEP, and how it was then adapted to alliance evaluations. And she will also give us some details about the evaluation process. Cecilia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Helene. I will share my screen so you can see my slides. I hope this is working.
Yes.
Okay, thank you again, Helene, and good afternoon, everybody. Today, I will give you an overview of the EUA-IEP, and I will focus on its methodology and defining characteristics. Then I will briefly explain how we designed our approach to the evaluation of alliances. And finally, I will give you a summary of the evaluation process. The goal of the IEP is to support the development of strategic leadership and the ability to manage change. Our evaluations are shaped by the institution's own context, and we place the institution's mission and goals at the center. We look across all areas of activity, including governance and decision-making, quality culture, learning and teaching, research, service to society, and internationalization. And our evaluations, very importantly, focus on improvement. So we use a critical friend approach to offer constructive support and suggestion. So we do not judge, we do not rank higher education institutions. Our evaluations are not a test that you either fail or pass. Peculiar to IEP are its strong emphasis on the self-evaluation phase, and I'll say more about this in a couple of minutes. Also, its European perspective. In fact, our evaluation teams are composed by experts from different countries, and they represent the diversity of European higher education. Also very important is our peer review approach. Evaluation teams are chaired by current or former rectors that have served many years in IEP, and other team members are current or former rectors or vice rectors. And finally, as Helene just mentioned, EUA-IEP is independent of national agencies or government evaluation and accreditation programs. Now that I've given you an overview of the principles and main features of the IEP, I will briefly explain how we adapted our approach to the reality of alliances using the results of the EUNIC project. And you can find the link to this project in the chat. The EUNIC was an Erasmus Plus funded project in which EUA was a partner. It ran from 2019 to 2021. And its aim was to develop a European approach for comprehensive quality assurance of European university networks. The EUNIC framework focuses on the joint activities and educational provision delivered collectively by the Alliance, and it is designed to be easily adopted and used by any ECHA-registered QA agency. Now, without going into detail, the EUNIC methodology closely aligns with the IEP methodology, although the underlying philosophy is slightly different. For example, IEP does not provide a final judgment, while EUNIC proposes a grading based on the stage of development of the QA system of the Alliance. Slightly different are also the key questions that guide the evaluations. EUNIC focuses on the internal QA system of the Alliance, whereas IEP has a more comprehensive approach, and it looks at all areas of the Alliance activities. In 2024, a proposal for a Council recommendation on a European quality assurance and recognition system in higher education recommended that Member States draw on the results of the EUNIC as part of the QA framework they are to develop for alliances. And the following year, a Council recommendation encouraged Member States to explore a dedicated quality assurance framework for higher education alliances, drawing on the EUNIC project methodology. So following these recommendations, we have aligned our methodology with the EUNIC model. And last spring, we launched the IEP evaluation of alliances, as many of you know. Ingenium is the first alliance that has registered and is currently undergoing an evaluation, and we will hear directly from them later in this webinar. Aligning the EUNIC methodology with the IEP methodology has led us to formulate 5 guiding questions for alliances that you see here. Of course, you can find them also in the guidelines, and the link is in the chat. These questions are very important because they really steer the direction of the evaluation. As you see, the first one focuses on what the Alliance is trying to do. So what are its mission, aims, objectives, and their appropriateness? The second question asks how the Alliance is trying to achieve its goals, and it focuses on processes to analyze their effectiveness. The third question asks how the Alliance monitors the extent to which its vision is actually realized. So we can say it looks at feedback systems in place, stakeholder consultations, and reporting mechanisms. The fourth question is specific about the quality of education, research, and any other services provided by the Alliance. It examines the QA procedures, shared benchmarks, and peer review systems. Finally, the fifth question tries to understand how the Alliance changes to move from project-based management to long-term and sustainable cooperation. So it focuses on strategic planning, capacity, and willingness to change. I will now go through the evaluation process to give you an overview of its main stages. Here you have an indicative timeline, but please remember that we are flexible and ready to meet the Alliance's needs. I just wanted to give you an idea of how long the evaluation takes approximately and show you how much time passes between one stage and the other. The first stages are, of course, the registration and the preliminary arrangements, and they can happen also very much in advance before the start of the evaluation. The self-evaluation phase, which, as I said, is very important, and I will go more into detail about this soon, normally takes around 3 months and is followed by the online meetings that last for around 2 days and the site visit that takes 4 days. Site visit normally takes place at the coordinating institution, the institution that coordinates the alliance. After the site visit, around 2 months after the site visit, the evaluation report is provided to the alliance, and then there is the follow-up phase, which consists in one video conference 3 months after the end of the evaluation, and one progress report that is submitted by the alliance around 1 year after the end of the evaluation. I will now go more into detail about the evaluation process. As I mentioned, the self-evaluation phase is very important. It is really an opportunity for self-reflection and community building. It's a process that is designed to encourage a structured and honest self-reflection and to involve the wider alliance community. This phase envisages the composition of a small representative self-evaluation group, which plans and coordinates the work and produces the self-evaluation report that shapes the overall review. In concrete terms, the self-evaluation phase should run for at least 3 months, with regular, well-structured meetings and wide consultation involving the alliance community and relevant external stakeholders. The self-evaluation report should be evidence-based, and it should follow the EUA self-evaluation questions that I showed you earlier. And last but not least, please remember that to get the most out of the evaluation, it is important to approach the evaluation with openness, honesty, and a willingness to engage in critical self-reflection. Evaluators should be regarded as peer-critical friends who provide constructive feedback, challenge assumptions, and offer alternative perspectives. Their role is to support the alliance in achieving their goals, rather than to pass judgment or assign blame. Now I will give you a bit of practical information about the responsibilities during the evaluation that you can also find in the guidelines. At the start, the EUA-IEP Secretariat assembles an evaluation team and proposes a team to the alliance, which has the opportunity to verify any potential conflict of interest. Also, the selection of the dates for the online meetings and the site visit is done collaboratively at the start of the evaluation process. Then the alliance, of course, is in charge of preparing the self-evaluation report, but with the support of the evaluation team and of the IEP Secretariat, we are always happy to help. The schedule for the online meetings and the site visit are finalized collaboratively, but there are samples in the guidelines that you can take as a starting point. During the site visit, the local logistics, such as accommodation, local travel, and meals, are organized by the Secretariat and the Alliance together, whereas the team will take care of their own travel arrangements. And last but not least, a little bit of information about the cost division for the site visit. EUA-IEP covers the international travel of the evaluation team, whereas the Alliance covers all the local costs, including accommodation, local travel, and meals. At the end of the site visit, the evaluation team presents an oral report with key findings and recommendations. It is presented to the head of the coordinating institution and then to a wider audience. Subsequently, a draft based on the oral report is prepared by the evaluation team and sent to the Alliance around 9 weeks after the site visit. And the Alliance has 2 weeks to correct factual errors. Now, with factual errors, we mean mistakes in the report where verifiable facts are incorrect. For example, names or dates or numbers, structured descriptions of processes or documents. We do not include disagreements over the evaluator's analysis, judgments, or recommendations. After the factual check, The evaluation report is finalized and sent to the Alliance, published on the EUA-IEP and the DECAR platforms, and the Alliance is allowed to use the Evaluated by EUA-IEP label for up to 5 years. Following the reception of the evaluation report, the Alliance should review the evaluation process and its outcomes, analyze the report, and address recommendations. Around 3 months after the final report is delivered, there is an informal follow-up meeting. And finally, 1 year after the final evaluation report, the Alliance should submit a brief progress report summarizing the actions taken in response to the recommendations. This is just a short document and is sent to the evaluation team that will provide further feedback to the Alliance. Now, this is all about the evaluation process. I'm happy to answer any questions during the Q&A. I will now give the floor back to my colleague, Elena.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. And yes, indeed, we will later on, after the other 2 presentations, have some time for questions from the audience. But please already feel free to enter your questions for Cecilia in particular in the chat, and we will pick them up a little bit later. But first, we move on to our second speaker of the webinar today. Now that Cecilia has told us about the what and the how, so how IEP is working in general, but also for alliances, you might still have the question of the why. Why should you go for an alliance evaluation? And here to tell us why is Simona Lacke, who is a member of the steering committee of EUA-IEP already since 2019. She's also the Vice Director for Internationalization and Quality Evaluation since 2008 at the Transylvania University of Brasov in Romania. She's also involved in the governance of the Universitas Montium Alliance, and there she's a president of the Quality and Evaluation Board. And as I already mentioned, she will now tell us about the added value of EUA-IEP for alliances. For example, how they can benefit alliances at different stages of development. Simona, welcome to the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Helen. I will share my presentation. I hope everyone is able to see it in a presentation mode. Yeah. Okay. So, dear colleagues, good afternoon. Today I will try to answer to this question of why alliances choose the EUA-IEP evaluation program. And this is considering that over the last years, European universities' alliances have become one of the most ambitious transformation, I would say, in the European higher education. And with this ambition comes also a key question: how such complex transnational structures can be evaluated. Of course, there is the model, there is the unique model, but nobody or very few attempts were in order to try it. And I suppose it is an ongoing process that will be improved once the lessons will be learned from the evaluations that will come. However, we speak about European Universities Alliances today, and we, I think, all agree that they are fundamentally different from single institutions. They are not legal entities in a traditional way, yet they take strategic decisions, manage resources, and shape academic future. They operate across national systems, legal frameworks, and quality cultures. Governance is shared, layered, and often evolving. This means that traditional evaluation models designed for stable, nationally embedded institutions often struggle to capture the reality of alliances. What alliances need is not a checklist, but an evaluation approach that understands complexity, transition, and why not experimentation. So having that, the EUA-IEP program is, we would say, unique in its way, designed by universities and for universities. It has been already mentioned that it runs for a long time already, and it aims at supporting institutions in developing their strategic leadership and capacity to manage change, that it is independent, peer review based evaluation, and it supports institutions in understanding how their own governance, strategy, and quality culture are to be developed. For alliances, this is crucial. So EUA-IEP offers an European-level reflection framework rather than a national regulatory lens. It provides, I would say, a mirror, not a verdict. How can that be achieved? First of all, through IEP EUA philosophy. As this is one of the strongest key points of the program, the enhancement-led philosophy. EUA-IEP does not ask, are you compliant with a regulation or a standard? But it asks, are you structured or are your structures fit for your mission? This is particularly important for alliances, which are often still evolving. Many are piloting new governance models, joint decision-making, or shared academic frameworks. EUA-IEP creates a safe and constructive space to discuss what works, what does not yet work, and what could be improved, without fear for formal consequences. This discussion is, in the first place, taken within the alliance in the stage of drafting the self-evaluation report, and afterwards is extended with the members of the evaluation team. Alliances live with complexity, central versus local authority, shared strategies versus institutional autonomy, speed versus inclusiveness. EUA-IEP panels are explicitly trained to analyze how complexity is managed, not to penalize it. Differences between partners are not seen as weaknesses, but as realities that require governance solutions. This makes EUA-IEP particularly credible for alliances. Reviewers understand that coherence does not mean uniformity and that maturity is often a gradual process. Another defining feature of EUA-IEP is the profile of its review teams. Again, it has been already mentioned about some words about the composition. Panels are composed by senior academic leaders, often former rectors or vice rectors, who have themselves led institutions through change, reform, and internationalization. For alliances leaders, this creates an immediate level of trust and relevance. Discussions happen at the right level: strategy, leadership, governance, and institutional culture, not operational micro details. And if I refer to the national quality assurance agencies, unlike them, EUA-IEP is not anchored in one legal or regulatory system. Its reference point is the European higher education area, and its perspective is genuinely European. This is essential for alliances which operate across systems rather than within one. The program understands European policy dynamics, European universities initiatives, and the pressure alliances are sometimes facing from multiple national contexts. This allows the evaluation to be fair, balanced, and system aware. So the evaluation process is flexible and adapted to the alliance, not the other way around. Does EUA-IEP has a flexible methodology? It can be adapted to the alliance's needs, maturity, and strategic questions. Some alliances focus on governance, other on integration, sustainability, or long-term vision. The program EUA-IEP can accommodate these priorities and co-design the evaluation scope accordingly. This flexibility is particularly valued by alliances that do not yet fit into predefined evaluation categories. For many alliances, I suppose the real value of EUA-IEP lies not only in the final report, but in the whole process. The self-evaluation, the internal discussions, and the dialogue with peers often help them to clarify priorities, surface potential tensions between members, and build a shared understanding among partners. EUA-IEP evaluations often strengthen internal cohesion and provide external legitimacy vis-à-vis stakeholders without reducing the alliance to metrics and rankings. To conclude, European universities alliances choose or would choose EUA-IEP because it speaks their language. It is European, independent, peer-driven, and enhancement-oriented. It understands complexity, respects diversity, and supports strategic development rather than formal compliance. In short, EUA-IEP does not judge alliances, but helps them learn, mature, and grow. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer to your questions.
Thank you very much, Simona, for these insights. I already see there are 2 questions in the chat, and to the audience, please keep them coming, to Cecilia, to Simona, to all of us. In the meantime, though, we will move on with the program because we will take questions later and move on to our next speaker, Juan Rayon Gonzalez, who is the director of the Ingenium Alliance and who will tell us a little bit about, behind the scenes insights of this current evaluation that is ongoing under EUA-IEP for alliances. Juan has previously worked in the policy team of the Higher Education Unit of the European Commission with a focus on the European degree and quality assurance, which makes him, of course, uniquely qualified for his current position. And he has also been the president of the Erasmus Student Network Spain, where he led the involvement of ESN in the European Universities Initiative and collaborated with several alliances as associate partners. He will now tell us why his alliance, Ingenium, chose IEP in the first place, how they have approached the evaluation, and how the experience has been so far. Juan, thank you so much for speaking to us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Helene. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to be here. So I'm going to be telling you a bit about our experience, and to be honest, it's a great pleasure because this is something that, just like Simona described, is really helping us to grow. I'm trying to structure my presentation in 3 parts: a bit of an introduction to Ingenium, who we are, what do we care about, probably the most important question to all of you, which is why did we decide to do this? And then how have we managed the first steps of the evaluation? Because of course, the evaluation is still ongoing. But before that, I would like to take a moment to thank Cecilia, Tanya, and the whole team for the great support that we are receiving, for their patience, right? As you know, alliances are always super busy, and I think they are being fantastic with us. And I think it's yet another reason to at least consider the possibility of taking part in this great initiative. So Ingenium is an alliance of 10 universities across Europe, very diverse. We have universities from all corners, east, west, north, and south. It's a very diverse alliance. We like to call ourselves, like many other alliances, the Alliance of Diversity, because we combine comprehensive universities, universities of applied sciences, technological universities, technical universities, and even a medical university, which I think makes this kind of cohesion and internal engagement processes, quality assurance, even more important, right? When you come from such different institutional traditions, you have completely different frameworks. It is absolutely key that you have a robust internal framework to guide your operations and define strategic priorities. A bit about our mission, vision, and shared values. Well, we probably, like all alliances, our main priority is to develop a real inter-European university campus where we unlock and nurture talent through education, interdisciplinary research, and social engagement, addressing key societal challenges. There is a clear vision towards the creation of a European university. And I think this element cannot be separated from the fact that we decided to undergo this evaluation. And then we try to have a concrete focus on the skills of the future with a complete scope in terms of educational delivery from PhDs to micro-credentials, trying to integrate teaching excellence with biennial service. In terms of our governance, well, I think it's a governance that can also resonate with many of you. We have the Alliance Council, where directors and delegates sit. We have the Steering Committee, which is coordinated by me now as director, where we have the Ingenium partner coordinators. We have a secretariat with the core staff working on the support, to ensure that all operations run smoothly. Then we have decision-making committees, which make decisions around joint education, innovation, research collaboration, sustainability. And I think quite importantly, we have a student board, which is represented with voting power in all the decision-making structures. So at the Alliance Council, students have their vote. At the Steering Committee, students have their vote. And at the Academic Committee, students even have a blocking minority. So no decision can be taken if the students do not endorse it. A couple of the things that are really important to us, well, innovation in education, trying to really pool, our resources together to build the education of the future with a joint innovation strategy for education that rests on their 4 pillars: student-centered education, excellent teaching, cooperation and co-creation, digitalization, and AI, and then with concrete initiatives that seek to support the implementation of this process. Staff academies, joint education labs, which are projects to support this type of education and innovation, and then different types of competitions to showcase excellent practices. Our focus until now has been mainly to try to initiate our joint education offer, where we're working on several joint programs. The first one will start next year. I'm also happy to share that, for instance, we are working on the first European approach accreditation for some of our partners, in this case in Romania with Aragis, with the Quality Assurance Agency, and we also work on flexible learning pathways and micro-credentials. Next to this, PhD education is very important to us, where we once again try to work on flexible models that allow us to accommodate to the diversity of our partners universities through the PhD ecosystems, which are in the end flexible pathways for PhD learners so they can benefit from the several opportunities provided by our partner universities. So now we come to the really important part. Why? You might be wondering, why did we decide to do this, right? Well, it all starts with the high-level commitment from our rectors to make sure that Ingenium really leads to the creation of a university with 10 campuses, right? So when we discuss with our rectors, which, as you know, are really busy people, what they tell us, the mandate that they give us is, look, do whatever you need to do to build the foundations for the creation of this European university. Because what we want to do in the future is to ensure that we can have these real European degrees, this structured cooperation, even looking at, if necessary, changing our legal structures or administrative practices to move towards that direction. At the moment of the project preparation in 2022, we already included references to a future cross-accreditation of the alliances. So we have this commitment to cross-accreditation. And related to this commitment, it was clear that this process provided by the European University Association was the first step to consolidate ourselves as an alliance, right? To first evaluate what we do, have this dialogue process described by Cecilia and Simona, to then be better prepared for future developments while reinforcing our structures, the way we work together, etc. We are deeply committed to a quality culture, and we believe that this dialogue process can be extremely helpful in that regard. And next to this, we are also working in the creation of our future legal entity, a European Grouping for Territorial Cooperation, which, as you know, is also quite an ambitious instrument. I think we are one of the few alliances working towards that. And it's really important for us the development of that legal entity is done, in a way in which we ensure that we are building things that are fit for purpose. And therefore, we see these processes as complementary, creating a legal entity in a way in which we embed all these quality mechanisms. So we're trying to move, let's say, from implementation to consolidation, right? Starting as a project, but then gradually integrating and building this inter-university campus where we have, let's say, our own approach, the Ingenium approach, this structural leap, which will result hopefully already by the end of 2026, since we have already approved the statutes, in the creation of the legal entity. And then, with this evaluation, we have this dialogue process, this external validation that will reinforce our long-term consolidation as an alliance. To tell you a bit more about our plans for the legal entity, because I think it's quite aligned with many of the objectives of the evaluation, we are working with the idea of having our EGTC as one of the main pillars of our European campus, right? With this centralization of services that are totally instrumental for the rollout of a European campus. Administrative support, logistics, supporting pedagogy, for instance, through teacher training programs that are delivered through the EGTC, a single entry point for most of our scholarships and funding mechanisms, the funding and also the micro-credentials, learning from other alliances like ECIU that have already taken really important steps. And the great thing is that we have done an analysis to ensure that many of these things are already doable without changes in the EGTC regulation, which, as you know, also the European Commission is considering at the moment. Fostering a quality culture is really important here. And as was described by Simone and Cecilia, the way we try to approach this is to really have critical conversations. Because of our reporting mechanisms, alliances need to always say that everything that we do is fantastic, amazing, and extremely impactful, but we all know that there is a space for improvement. So this process was an opportunity to sit together, reflect, ask these critical questions, and move towards a stronger quality culture. And I have to say that it was really, really successful and super interesting. We do have the basis of our framework, right? We do have a joint QE policy aligned with the SGs. We have a number of processes also for everything we do, but we believe that we have tremendous room for improvement. And this process has already helped even before submitting or receiving the final report to consolidate that. So that's our strategy, to use this process to move from fragmented practices to a unified quality assurance culture that, of course, recognizes the diversity of our members, but allows us to advance in a clear direction, right? And for instance, the process already helped us to better identify the type of steps that we want to include in this type of quality assurance practices. So now let's talk a bit more about the practicalities. How did we approach this evaluation process? So what we try to do is to combine using all this knowledge base that we already have with strategic dialogue involving all the internal stakeholders. We created a task force, just like the guidelines require, including institutional representatives from different levels, mostly coordinators, vice rectors, to ensure that everybody was represented there. But then we also use a lot of what we had, right? We looked into our quality assurance framework. We looked into our deliverables. We looked into our long-term strategy that we had recently approved just a couple of months before delivering the report. And then after compiling all this information, we launched a series of focus groups to have those deep discussions on where do we believe the direction should go. And this is what led to all those really interesting questions. Then we took the information, we created it through the task force, and that's how we produced the report that then was revised for me as coordinator of the task force. What was clearly the most important thing was this self-critical approach. where do we need to improve the most? This was not always easy, right? Precisely because of this reporting culture that alliances normally have, right? Of trying to showcase everything. But it was definitely the most impactful part. Look at every part that we have submitted, that we have included in the report, and think, look, do we see a space for improvement here? Are there things that we believe we could do differently? In which way we could do them differently? So I have to say that it was also a highly synergetic process for the preparation of our +2 funding application that probably many of the alliances here are also doing at the moment. What were the challenges? Well, of course, there are always challenges in a process like this. So we are very proud of our student involvement mechanisms, but it is true that the process caught us at the time of transition between student boards. So it was not always easy to get, the level of deep involvement of student representatives as we would have wanted to. But what we have tried to do is to ensure that for the next steps, they are fully up to speed with everything, and also to get the information from both student boards, from the previous year, from the current one. But I do have to say that here, I do see room for improvement. We could have done it even better. So it's also a reflection, right? That we need to understand the complexity of this process in terms of the type of discussions that you need to have and how to digest it for the student representatives. Then, well, the realistic assessment of the implementation gaps, meaning taking the time to look, point by point at what we have done, and we really see the need for improvement. With which things are we more satisfied about, and whether even in those things we see room for improvement. Also, the role of the different partners in implementation. All those implementation gaps that sometimes you don't think about, right? Because of all the things that we have on our plates normally. I think that's also key. It's challenging, but it's one of the most productive parts of the process. And then, of course, we are young alliances. We are way less experienced than many of you here, right? We only started as a full alliances in 2023. So this means 3 years of full implementations compared to others that have 6. So in certain areas, it was a bit more difficult to provide comprehensive responses, which, to be honest, I think it's also okay, because it also helped us to rethink processes that were still under development. So I think, as Simona said, I think that this process can be useful for alliances at all stages, to be honest, right? So either if you are a very experienced alliance, which has been working together from the very first call or even from before, or a younger alliance who really wants to prioritize this type of consolidation, I think this process has something for you. And how do we plan to integrate the results? Final part. Well, I think that it was described. We plan to do exactly what was said by Cecilia and Simona, to inform our QA practices for EGT operations, but also for the overall alliance operations, to boost our capacity to manage change. And we do have a lot of change to manage. We need to accommodate our institutional diversity, not only accommodate it, right, but actually to tap into it to produce even better results, to refine our quality assurance approach in teaching and learning, boost stakeholder engagement, both of internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, and also refine governance processes and how those different bodies interact between themselves. So that was it from my side, but really happy to take questions. And once again, thank you so much for inviting me. And I recommend everybody, to take the leap and experience this process, because it has been a great experience for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Juan. This was now our third and final presentation, and I already see some questions in the chat. If some of you would like to think of more questions for all our free speakers, please go ahead. But while you think about your questions, I think my colleague Cecilia had an announcement about another way to get engaged.
Yes, thank you very much, Helene. As you think about your questions, I'd like to quickly draw your attention to a survey on quality assurance that we just launched. The survey is conducted as part of the stakeholder perspectives on implementation of commitments in the EHEA project. In short, the SPICE project. The survey will look at the state of play of internal and external quality assurance. It will stay open until the 3rd of April, and you can find the link in the chat. All higher education institutions in the European higher education area are welcome to complete the survey. I promise it's not very long, and mostly made of predefined answer options, so you don't have much writing to do. And it's really an opportunity for you to contribute to the understanding and the further development of quality assurance in the European higher education area. So please just copy and paste the link you find in the chat. You may have received an email from us just yesterday. You can also find the survey webpage on the EUA website. Please just give us your feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cecilia, and also to Tanya in the background for copying in the link to the SPICE survey. But now to your questions. I'm going to the first question that was popped into the chat, and I apologize in advance to everybody whose name I might strangle in the course of the upcoming few minutes. But the first question in the chat is from Vaclav Hampel, who is asking, couldn't publishing the report discourage interested alliances from participating, for example, due to worry of public exposure of weaknesses? I don't know if either maybe Cecilia or Simona, you would like to take this one. Simona, yes.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Václav, for this question. I must confess that I never thought about something like this, but it's obvious that it can come to some of you. And this is because the process is not understood like it is because the report, usually an IEP report, reflects on how the structure, the alliance is fit for its scope, for its objectives. That means that nobody judges anything. Although you as alliance are required to provide a SWOT analysis, this is mainly because this is an opportunity for you to reflect about yourself in the first place. And in the second place, it's that it helps the evaluation team to understand better how you see yourself, what are your challenges, what are your, I wouldn't say weaknesses, but challenges, and how they can help. So finally, in the report, in the EAP report, what you can see are recommendations. And the recommendations are really tailored for each of the alliance, and hopefully some of them really help to develop and to change. I hope this this helped.
If I may add something, of course, we are an ESG compliant QA program. We are members of ENCA and registered in ECHR. So we have to publish all our reports on DECAR, and they're always also available on our website. So as Simona was saying, if you looked at our reports, then of course those that we have published so far are about single institutions, not alliances, but you can really see the constructive tone that we have in our evaluations, and that there is no judgment or ranking. So if you want to take a look at that, you will see that for yourself.
Okay, thanks so much to both of you for answering the question. I have more questions in the chat, but I also see that Geneviève has her hand raised. Geneviève, is your point about Václav's question, or is it rather a new question?
It's a new question, so you can take the chat questions first.
Okay,
If you want to
okay.
comment.
All right. Then I will continue with Anja Dieters, who is asking if the focus is on quality enhancement rather than assurance without pass-fail assignments, why is there a time of 5 years for the validity of the evaluation? Who would like to take this one? Simona?
I can try an answer. It's not about, I wouldn't link this periodic or the limited validity of the EUA-IEP evaluation to 5 years. It can be 5, it can be more, less. But the principle, I would keep the principle because, what is that we evaluate during this process is, as I said, if the structures are fit for your missions. But this can change. And when we speak about alliances, that can change even drastically in the following years because of the evolutive feature of the alliances. So what fits today, maybe tomorrow will fit less or no fit at all. That's why periodic evaluation, I think, it's something that is good to take into consideration.
Thank you very much, Simona. Okay, then I also see several questions by Maria Weber in the chat, and I see that Cecilia has already answered one of them. So if I may, maybe I can just quickly give the floor to Geneviève before we continue with the chat.
Okay, thanks, Hélène. Hello, everybody. I know some of you personally in this audience. My question is, do you think there is a better moment to actually do that kind of evaluation? A lot of us in the alliances are trying to move slowly but surely from this project management to this quality assurance of an alliance. And I think what is very interesting in the approach and what Juan was talking about is also the fact that the evaluation would look at the organizational model, at the structure, at the governance to actually make it a working alliance. So I was wondering, when do you think would be the best moment in this evolution and this construction to actually have that kind of evaluation? And maybe a second question would be, you're looking at what the member universities do in comment at the level of the alliance, but do you also look at the impact of the alliance on the member university's mission? For example, if you're a member of an alliance, it could have an impact on your own study offer or your own research. But maybe those are two different questions.
Okay, thank you, Geneviève. This feels like a question that could be answered by all three of our speakers. So who would like to go first? Simona?
Okay. Geneviève, if I had to answer to your question a few months before, I would have said that definitely at a more mature stage, when the alliance is the governance model, it's more or less settled, stable, and we are able to look forward and understand, reflect on how to transform a project into a university, a European university. But now, during the last weeks, when I was more reflecting on the process, I realized that it's not necessary to be that way, in the sense that it depends very much. It depends very much on what the alliance is about and how it feels the need for the help to figure it out its way. So it can be also maybe in the beginning when the alliance is searching for the governance model. There are some options, and maybe some insights from outside would be useful for them to to have a good answer to their questions. So I would stop here and leave maybe Juan to continue.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can go next. I think I pretty much agree with Simona. Look, my reflection was also when preparing the questionnaire and everything, like, well, it would be nice to have even more experience or join programs, maybe having completed a couple of cycles. But at the same time, what mattered to us was that the high level objective of Ingenium is clear, as I told you before, right? In the end, we have a mandate, and the mandate is clear. And the more we are in a position to rethink what we do, to reflect, the better, because then the process is more useful. Of course, the idea is that you enter into this evaluation process with an open mind in terms of changing things that you do and being able to reflect on your practices, on your initiatives, on what do you need to change to better achieve your objectives, right? And to better move towards your mission. And I think that's what matters the most, right? I would only enter this process if I do have that clear idea of where do we see our alliance going. Because otherwise, you do it and for sure it will be useful, but I don't think that it will help you so much to get towards a clear goal if the goal doesn't exist. So even if you are not so experienced, but you feel maybe alliances that have started like us 3 years ago, 2 years ago, but you see that at the high level there's a clear understanding of the ultimate objective, I think it can be extremely useful. So it doesn't really matter as long as those final goals are clearly defined.
I can maybe start providing an answer to Genevieve's second question about the impact of the alliance on the member institutions. This is not primarily the focus of our evaluations. But I think, Simona, I see you nodding. It's because recently we have been talking about trying to, if not assess the impact, but also to get an idea of how the alliance is seen outside the bubble of the alliance. So to also involve some people from the member universities that are not primarily employed in the alliance activities. And I think this is something that we are going to explore more in the future.
Juan?
Yes, just a moment to reflect on this part, because to me, and it was quite clear, I think it also replies to one of the questions, I think, by Julia. When you start to analyze and to evaluate and to reflect on your alliance, I don't think you can disentangle broader impact and institutional impact, because any alliance to move towards real transformation requires internal transformation of the partner universities, right? You need to change academic structures, processes, governance structures. So what you start to see when you reflect on those questions and you have those conversations with partners about how the different levels of integration are moving, you're also talking about the institutional impact, in the sense you're also reflecting on whether the alliance has managed to transform the way that the universities work, right? Of course, I think probably the way to assess this can improve even further, but that process comes to the fore while you are doing this self-evaluation already, because you need to reflect on that. You need to think, okay, have we managed to change how we work as institutions to better achieve the objectives of the alliance? In the end, there is no alliance objectives or alliance governance without the partners governance, right? Because you need both things to be integrated. And then maybe just to react to that, because probably they're tightly connected. Indeed, what we try to do is to take the lessons from the self-evaluation report and, as I was saying, link them to our future project preparation. So the time was ripe in that sense, right? Because we were doing the evaluation, now we're working on the +2. So whenever we saw those gaps in terms of partner involvement, of course, with a lot of diplomatic skills, as you always need to do in this transnational context, we also try to take good note and then think, look, we see that this is not working so well for you. Let's have a conversation on how we can adapt a bit our dynamics to better accommodate your needs while keeping the same objectives, right? So sometimes it's about being able, and we have tried to do that in Ingenium in our long-term strategy to understand that you need to move at different speeds sometimes, and that's okay as long as you have a clearly defined common goal. So hopefully that also answers to Julia's question.
Thank you very much, Juan. We're running a little bit out of time, but maybe there is just time for one more quick question, which is how does EUA-IEP differ from the regular midterm evaluation in qualitative terms? Is there anybody who would like to take on this question and provide a very concise answer?
If midterm evaluation means the project evaluation, because I'm not very, if it's about that, it totally differs because what you follow in the midterm evaluation from the European Commission is the indicators on project-based approach. And what you have in the EUA-IEP, it's the philosophy of self-reflecting on what you plan and how you plan to achieve your goals. So I would say the difference would be from the project-based to a new institution-based evaluation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks to all our three speakers, actually, and thank you also to the audience for your excellent questions. Unfortunately, our time is up. I hope you found this insight into EUA-IEP for Alliances useful, and I hope you stay engaged in the future. As my colleague Tanya already mentioned in the chat, this webinar is recorded, and you will also have access to the recording and the slides through the event hub through which you registered for this webinar, in case you would like to revisit a few moments. Thanks again for joining us today, and I hope I see you again, maybe even in person, at another event on a future occasion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.